Hey everyone, my name is Kevin and I am back yet again with another new video, and today we're going to be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Now, I understand that I already told you guys the history behind the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, but there has been updates with the redesign and the trailer that was just so good that I want to just go ahead and pretty much talk about everything about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie from scratch. And well, before I actually get into the history, starting in from 2013 all the way from 2020, I want to tell you guys what happened before the Sonic the Hedgehog movie actually came to be. So what happened was that, well, Sonic the Hedgehog was in fact going to be directed by many studios. They were even willing to do other ways to actually make the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Like make it animated, make it live action. There were so many pitches and ideas to actually make these type of Sonic the Hedgehog movies. But one thing led to another, it just never came to be. And there was original ideas to actually pitch it to DreamWorks, but it just never happened. It never stuck, and we just never got one. And then 2013 came around. In 2013, it was announced, well, unknownly announced, that one of the directors of Sega straight up released and confirmed that there was going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. It wasn't sure on how it was going to go down, but it was definitely going to hit theaters at some time really soon. Apparently, Yuki Naka was actually confirmed that there was going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog movie sometime in the works. It just wasn't exactly sure as to when. Regarding to the fact that this took place in 2013, well, there has been something that happened within that time. You see, there was a studio called studio that Sega works with that where they trust them into actually making cutscenes of their games. This studio was actually in charge of pretty much making everything that had something to do with the Sonic the Hedgehog games, with the cutscenes and everything. So, the scene where Sonic the Hedgehog turned into a werewolf in Sonic Unleashed in the opening scene, that was them. It was that studio. I'm not familiar with the name of the studio, but people were actually convinced that there was going to be a movie under their name, and all they had to do was just go to a studio that could help them actually produce the movie. Luckily, there was one studio. So the studio that Sega and the studio that helped them make the cutscenes of the game actually searched help from Sony to help them actually make the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. On one hand, most people were skeptical because Sony isn't really well with good making movies of their own, but people still had hope for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie because everyone wanted to see it. Apparently, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie by Sony and the other studios were actually going for a darker turn, but luckily, there's nothing really going on with the movie. It was told that we were going to get it official, but there's no other further news other than it was actually in the making that following year. But this is where the Sonic in Development movie actually goes into, well, downhill. Apparently, Sony was actually planning to work with Sega to make a full-on trilogy for the Sonic movie. So not only were we going to get one, but we were going to get one each year. So we were going to get 3 movies within the span of 3 years. For fans, that would be excellent because we could wait a whole year to see how the story would continue, but then it would also be bad for the movie's perspective because they had to keep making movies day in and day out. After that, we'd never really gotten any update about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie produced by Sony, but there is a reason behind that. So apparently, Sony kind of stopped making the Sonic movie, and then after that, Paramount took the rights to Sonic and continued the project without Sony. And there's another reason behind this. Apparently, Sony saw this as a sinking boat to make this movie. So Paramount took the rights and actually have confidence into making this. Coming from this tweet, they said that it was confirmed that Sony Pictures nabbed the rights to the Sonic movie after Sony put it into a turnaround because, well, they just didn't see it actually happening. They thought it was going to ruin their studio, as if the Emoji Movie didn't do it. After 2016, it was announced that the movie was going to be slated to be released in 2017, but was held back in 2018, and then finally it was held back in 2019 of November. And since then, the director of Deadpool, Tim Miller, actually took on the rights to actually produce this movie. After Sony lost the rights to Sonic, they kind of turned towards Nintendo, and Nintendo and Sony worked together to make a new Mario movie. And yes, the same plans for the movie was similar to Sonic the Hedgehog. They were going to make 3 movies and make it into a trilogy, but they lost the rights to it. Now Illumination owns the rights to this Super Mario's movie and is going to try something new for the series instead of it being a trilogy. So when it comes to the term of the casting, Paul Rudd was actually going to be discussed to play the human that actually encounters Sonic, named Officer Tom. But that was actually into a cancellation. Instead of Paul Rudd, someone else would be taking the role for him. Instead, James Marsden was going to actually play Officer Tom instead of Paul Rudd, which is actually sad because Paul Rudd is actually one of my favorite actors. But you can't always get what you want. There are even leaked photos of him on set with Sonic the Hedgehog movie, with him being Officer Tom. And on one hand, it's actually good that he's back in acting. At first, I didn't recognize him, but after seeing his actual face and seeing him in other movies, I've seen that this is his second time playing a character where he's teaming up with a fictional character from another world, and that was Hop. And I forgot the character of who he was playing as, but either way, it was actually a pretty fun ride. After this, there was actually a leaked photo, well, not photo, but motion poster that showed us exactly as to what or how would Sonic the Hedgehog actually look. Coming from the design, it looked like they were going for more of a realistic style. It's not known what his face would have looked like in the original design, but it seems that they were going for only one iconic thing: his back spikes or his quills. But other than that, everything else looks way too realistic. And coming from his silhouette like eye, it looked like his face was going to look way too realistic. And there's actually an actual explanation as to why did Paramount actually somewhat remake the design for the Sonic the Hedgehog character. Miller said that he's not going to feel like a Pixar character because he don't think that it's aesthetic to be placed into our world, which is kind of weird on one hand, but it could have been nice if he made them look a little comic accurate. Either way, they could have just made his eyes a little more realistic, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But what I'm trying to say here is that they could have at least tried to make the design actually make the design and then make the trailer. But nope, they just went with something random and just made the entire trailer. Both on the internet and in local theaters, there was actually a leaked image of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which kind of showed exactly as to what will Sonic's legs be. Although we don't know the full advantage of his design, at least we know what his legs would have been in the movie. A day later, we had this, and in this one, I really do like the design here. And it's weird that we have Chris Pratt, but it's obvious that this was the early development. But I still really like the design here. Wish we could have had it before. And then later, we got this image, and honestly, it doesn't really look that good. He's too beefy and not cartoonish, and his eyes aren't even that big. So I could see why people didn't even like it to begin with. There was even someone who was claiming to actually seen the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. It finished its first shooting and everyone was ready for the reshoot, but it's weird how someone was able to even watch the movie before it was even released, let alone even be officially released. Anyway, in Brazil in that following year, or well, in the mid of that year, there was actually a Brazil Comic Con. I didn't even know that existed, but there was an early screening of the two Sonic the Hedgehog trailers. One focusing on Sonic and Tom, and the second one focusing on Dr. Robotnik. And the first one was going to have Gangster's Paradise that already was released, and the second one was going to have Eggman that had Everybody Dance Now. And, well, you guys seen how that was turned down. After the trailer was actually fully leaked, well, not to YouTube, but to somewhere else, people who saw it said that it was playing Coolio's Gangster's Paradise, and Sonic's design didn't really look like his cartoon counterpart, but instead looked at something way different. After the trailer was released officially on March, or I believe April, people have been rage quitting over how Sonic looked. Many people lost hope. Many people thought that the movie was going to be bad. There were even fan animations on how bad the movie was, how bad the movie was going to be, and people was losing hope. Fortunately, on the following week, the people of Paramount and the lead director of the movie was aware of this outcome, and he actually had some very good comments towards the movie. The message on Twitter said, "Thank you for the support and the criticism. The message is loud and clear. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen. And the people on Paramount was going back to the drawing board and was trying to redesign the true design of Sonic, and they did a good success. Sometime, sometime near the second release of the trailer, of its second trailer. Later, before the trailer was released, there was an leaked image that would show the redesign of Sonic the Hedgehog, and we're getting somewhat of a cartoony vibe here. Now, this isn't really what the effects are going for in the movie. This is just some type of default or a draft. So we see that we're bringing back the gloves, still getting the blue fur on the sleeves, and it's going for the original style. But we're still getting conjoint, not separated eyes, but we have the white fur between them that shows that it's connected. And we are also getting this poster soon in theaters after the movie is officially released on February the 14th, as this is when they were going to delay the movie sometime next year. After the release of the trailer that came out on November 12th, many people was glad that the redesign went to a success. People in Paramount was okay, and and the fans who saw the trailer were glad that we got the best Sonic possible. But here's the one thing that happened. You see, Tim Curry wasn't okay with the redesign, nor were they okay with the changes that happened in the movie. You see, turns out he was okay with the original design because, well, just by changing it, he realized that the real design was kind of monstrous, which is actually, well, okay, I see why he would think that, but that's just how it is. He just has to deal with it. He might have problems with the actors and the people on set and pretty much everything about the movie, but at least we will be getting a brand new design and a better version of the Sonic design, whether Tim Curry likes it or not.